Welcome back. As you can see in Learning Objective 1, we have 3 areas that we need to cover. We need to understand terms, we need to understand when HVIT transformation is desirable and feasible, and then we also need to spend some time on the objectives for HVIT. So let's go ahead and just jump right into the terms that we need to know. There are quite a few of them, and so make sure that you are confident in each one of these definitions. They do come back in the exams. Okay. First of all, digital organization. A digital organization is an organization that is enabled by digital technology to do business significantly different or to do significantly different business. That's an important distinction here. So a digitally enabled organization is probably a better term than a digital organization just because of the English around it. So when we start to translate it, I'm not so sure, but it is about an organization that uses and exploits digital technology to either complete business or to do different business than what they've had to do in the past. So digital technology is the enabler for those processes. It is part of the products and services that are being delivered by that organization. And the concept of digital is a strategic part of the overall business model for that organization. The ability to apply, or that they have applied the digital first idea, I guess I'm going to say, is that they look to see, can we exploit technologies, can we exploit digital? That's being applied to all of the primary activities. And again, it is that digital first concept that the strategic leadership is using as they develop that organization. The next term that we have is high velocity IT. High velocity IT is the application of digital technology for significant business enablement where speed is crucial. So now we have a new element here. It is not restricted to fast development. High velocity is required from innovation through development and operations to actually realizing value. So when you look at high velocity IT, it's not just about the speed of the use when you're actually using that system. It is about the speed at which you go from the idea to the actual delivery of that system. High velocity does not reduce the service utility or warranty concepts. You can still have those same kinds of requirements. And also understand that when we're talking about velocity, it's not a binary thing, one or the other. Understand that you can have various levels of the velocity within the services that you're delivering, either within the organization or across the organization. They can be higher or lower speeds within or across an organization. Understand that velocity is both speed and direction. And it's about doing the right things fast. Now that's a key point. You're doing the right things fast, not doing the same things over and over again and doing them faster, because most of the time that's going to be waste when you think about it. But you have to be doing the right things fast. So going back to the strategy and saying, what are the key critical services that we're delivering, or products and services that we're delivering, and how is that affecting our achievement of our objectives as an organization? But understand that as soon as you start increasing velocity, there is an increase in cost and risk. But the benefit is that it should give you a competitive advantage. When you're considering looking at increasing the speed, increasing the velocity of services, make sure that there is a clear return on investment. Are you going to get the benefit from the extra costs as well as mitigation activities? It may be a difficult step to take within the organizational culture, especially if the culture is not aware of digital or digital transformation. They don't understand what it actually means. And there's also sometimes there's organizations that don't need that high velocity IT scenario or delivery capabilities. So again, it's going back to the concept that you have to have an ROI that will justify the spend, because the spend is not going to be cheap. So high velocity IT, the application of digital technology for significant business enablement. Okay, so let's look at the next one. So when is transformation desirable and feasible? Some folks will say everything, and that would be incorrect. Understand that transformation is a big change, but yet it can be completed in an agile and incremental way. Small chunks, very quickly getting through from point A to point B, but doing the work that needs to be done to transform in small elements. It goes back to the adage of how do you eat an elephant, right? It's almost impossible, or it is impossible to do it in one bite. You have to take a lot of bites, and that's what a transformation activity would be. Some organizations, they might just need smaller improvements in what they're already doing, not that widespread organizational transformation. Again, transformation involves a great deal of costs and risks. And again, to remember and to reiterate, when is the transformation appropriate? The funding has to be available. You have to have a clear return on investment. The transformation efforts fit the organization's risk appetite. That's huge. The required resources that are outside of the traditional delivery methods are available. So when you start transforming, you're going to need to have different sets of knowledge, different sets of skills, different sets of capabilities. You're going to have to perhaps even change some of the hardware, software, and infrastructure components to be able to handle the speed requirements that high velocity IT is discussing. So making sure you have the available resources and that that transformation fits within the organization's culture. And so that makes me pause right there and start saying, gee whiz, it's a change. So do we have the capabilities to manage organizational change and deal with the potential resistance, deal with the fears of change and potential reorgs and whatnot? So this is a great time to consider, do I have the organizational change management skills and capabilities already in my organization, or do I need to go and find them? The next term that we have here is digital transformation. And digital transformation is the use of digital technology to enable a significant improvement in the realization of an organization's objectives that could not have been feasibly achieved by non-digital means. So, bottom line, it's enabling an organization to do significantly different business or to do business significantly different. Transformation, again, means major change. And again, that change can be divided up into small, agile, and incremental elements so that we can quickly iterate through. It doesn't mean that we have to wait till we have all the elements in one place and then lay it in over the top of an organization. To me, in this sense, that would be a massive failure. There's so many elements that need to change. When you are digitally transforming, it is a major investment, like what we've said, and because you're going to be digitizing or robotizing, which is a strange word, or using and incorporating a great deal of automation. None of those things are done for free. You have to have the technology to support it. You have to have the coding, the ongoing support, and whatnot. And before we go in any further, let's talk about this term digitizing. We're going to see it as a definition further on, but since we're using it here, I think it's important that we're very, very clear. Sometimes in digital transformation, people use the word digitalization. It is confusing with the word digitization, which is going back towards this digitizing. So when we're talking about digitization, we're talking about the technical process of changing something from analog to a digital form. So digitizing, going from analog to a digital form. And that's an important distinction to make. When we're talking digital transformation, we're doing significant changes within the organization where we then look at digital technology first to enable the realization of an organization's technologies. So it's not just going from a face-to-face classroom to now a video-based. That's analog to digital when you think about it. It's going beyond that and allowing an organization to achieve objectives that they couldn't have done in a non-digital way. Okay, so last point is something that we made on the previous slide in terms of saying, is your culture ready to accept these changes? And so again, organizational change management is very necessary to allow people to embrace the changes and embrace it in a manner that is controlled and understood and safe, I guess would be a good word. Okay. The next term that we have here is IT transformation. And this is how, where business and IT are regarded as separate organizational functions. So we could have an IT transformation to denote a major change to improve how IT services are provided. So how IT services are and systems are developed, run, and supported typically from a very centralized perspective or decentralized perspective. But now what we're doing is we're integrating those systems into digital lines of business. So now IT is not separate from the business. In fact, it's embedded within the business units. And there's really no clear distinction between the digital transformation and the IT transformation. So that leads us into a discussion around digital products. So when we think about a product, we know it's a configuration of an organization's resources designed to offer value to a consumer. But when a product becomes digital, so when the consumer experiences digital technology in the goods, resources, or interactions. So as a service provider, we provide products and services to the consumer. Okay, fair enough. That's just the base definition. And we do this for that element of co-created value, that we both get benefit. So customers are going to acquire goods and they're going to interact with the service provider. Value is then co-created when the consumer applies their resources to use a product. So many services are going to provide the consumer with both digital and analog and physical or analog experiences. So what we want to do here is to ensure that there is a level of seamless integration, and that when we talk about digital products, we're talking about a product that uses the digital technology as a way to deliver goods, resources, or manage associated service interactions. Okay. All right. So we have a product and we have a digital product. All right. So service interaction, something that we just used there as a term. This should be a term that you do know the definition of. But a service interaction takes place when a consumer makes actual use of a provider's service offerings. From the foundation class, you should know that there are 3 types of service interactions, and they're listed for you here. So the service actions, service action, where the service provider applies the resources to a request or be proactively applying resources. We also have access to resources. The consumer can use the provider's resources. And then there's lastly that transfer of goods, which is where the service consumer acquires the ownership of the provider's resources. So for an example, the very easy example for that transfer of goods would be in a hotel situation. You know, the guest has gone into a contract with a hotel, and because of the loyalty program, every time they check in or on a daily basis, they get 2 free bottles of water. Yay. That is the transfer of goods, because the hotel is giving them the bottles of water. They don't want them back, and they are part of the service that they are receiving from that hotel. That band of visibility is a set of boundaries between the consumer and the provider. And in fact, it's the level of view, I guess we could say, that the consumer allows the provider to see within their organization, and then vice versa. It's the boundary of where the provider allows the consumer to see within their organization. So let's go ahead and look at this from a graphical perspective. Well, 2 points first here. Too broad or too narrow, it makes it difficult to manage, because you don't have the information that you need, or you might be giving away too much information. You need to have this band of visibility so that you can understand the needs of the other party and then adjust it appropriately. So here it is. This is not the same diagram that you would see in the DSV volume, but on this side we have the provider, and on the right hand side we have the consumer in that bright pink. Notice the service actions that we have down the middle. We have the actual service actions, we have the access to resources, and we have the transfer of goods. On the provider side, the little square blocks typically are services, and then this little bright or light purple box is what they're calling the various products that that service provider has. Now, the band of visibility, it's very hard to see, so I'm going to try and trace over the top of it, but it is this dotted line that says here's the boundaries between the consumer and the provider, and the provider can see these elements within the consumer, and the consumer can see these elements within the provider, and that allows them to understand the capabilities. It allows them to understand how that consumer or provider is structured, is thinking, the resources that they have, how they're going to be used, the objectives, the whole piece. That band of visibility is incredibly important in terms of allowing a level of transparency, as well as supporting really good communication, so that we know exactly what services and products that need to be delivered to meet the mutual needs of both the provider and the consumer, so that we end up with that co-created value. Spend a little bit of time with this diagram. We're going to see a couple other ones that might be a little bit more might be a little bit easier to understand or see the point of what's being made, but again, it's going to be a choice, and we'll see that shortly. One other term here that we need to look at, actually, so digital technology has 2 components. It has an information technology and an operational technology. IT, or information technology, is about storing, retrieving, transmitting, and manipulating data. That's an important definition to have. IT only creates value when someone acts on a decision made using the data. There is no intrinsic value in IT whatsoever. It's whether or not you can use the information that's there to make that good decision. Operational technology, on the other hand, is about using data to take physical action. So when you're talking, in some examples here, we could look at car engine control. So the data from the various components within the car goes into the processor, and then the processor then sees that the car needs to do X, Y, and Z, and so they kick off those processes to do those functions as whatever they might be needing. Same thing with the electrical grid. You know, we see where we could prevent a brownout or a complete total outage, and we have, you know, the operational technology then stepping in to prevent that. Two terms here. Digital technology is technology that digitizes something or processes digital data. And then here's our definition for digitization. Digitization is the process of transforming something from analog form to digital form. In other words, it's expressed in binary digits. Okay. Very deep in the definitions. One more diagram, and then you get a chance to breathe for a second and review these definitions. I would really review them before moving on. So in a digital technology world, here we have both the information, the IT, and the OT components within that digital technology world. Information technology provides information. Operational technology is there to watch the performance of the network of the various components and looks for and or changes the state of physical devices so it meets the needs. This Internet of Things little block up in here is where we are transferring data. Think about it. Your refrigerator transfers data into the supermarket so that it then provides a shopping list, which will then eventually be delivered. Well, that information technology, that's the data from the refrigerator, it passes through these functional components into the operational side that says, okay, here's what I need to do because the refrigerator is empty. One thing that I would like to see on this, and I've seen it in other ITIL diagrams, is that they have put communication over the top of this diagram or underneath, because it is an element of communication that is needed for this to be the best use of digital technology. Okay, so that ends this first module with all of those definitions. Seriously, take the time and document those definitions and make sure that you have them clearly within your mind.